Broncos country, what's going on, man? Hope you guys are having a wonderful Thursday. Getting ready for Thursday Night Football, and I am personally getting ready for this Broncos and Chargers huge divisional matchup this Sunday, man. We're going to break down some key matchups. We're really going to look deep dive into the LA Chargers, some key PFF stats, some things that I think are very interesting. But before we get into that, let's look at some injury front news, right? And take a look at that here. So today, this is Thursday, September 18th. Tight end Evan Ingram again didn't practice with a back injury. So that's definitely something noteworthy. Now, I personally do still think, man, it's just one of those like really sick back soreness. I think I would be surprised if he didn't end up practicing tomorrow. But if he doesn't practice tomorrow, it's safe to say that he's not going to play Sunday. Mike Kliss says if he doesn't play, Chargers good news for the Broncos is tight end Nate Atkins appears to be on track to return. Mike Kliss, I can always appreciate Mike Kliss's optimism, right? But they're obviously very different players. But it's going to be great to have somebody like Nate Atkins back because he's a very key player on this offense. So I'm excited to get him back for sure. And then inside linebacker Justin Sternad, he returned to practice, which is good news considering that Dre Greenlaw, again, was still out. So we'll see. We'll see. Mike Kliss said prior, this was the week that they would kind of ramp him up a little bit, maybe, with hopes and expectations that he was going to play next week on, I believe it's Monday night. So we'll see if he ends up doing another limited practice session tomorrow like he did last Friday. So we will see. But anyways, is what it is. Can't really be complaining too much there. It's all good. So yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting to see. Obviously, the Chargers have a couple of injuries as well. Ladd McConkey was somebody that didn't practice yesterday with an elbow injury, but reports are showing today that he was limited. He was back. He had a pretty big brace on his elbow, so he should probably be good to go. Khalil Mack, we know, is not going to be playing for this game. It kind of is what it is. So let's dive into some of the PFF grades, man. What do y'all think about that? Let's do it. So here's a few things that really stood out to me. So we're going to start with the Chargers, and we're going to look at the receiving front, right? Because we know that right now they've got pretty much a three-headed monster in the pass game when it comes to their receivers. Obviously, Ladd McConkey being kind of their wide receiver one. Keenan Allen has had a really great resurgence there. He's having a great season. And then Quentin Johnson, talk about somebody that's flipping his career around. Former first-round pick Quentin Johnson. Those are going to be the main guys, and as you can see, they're the highest targeted guys, right? The guy that's been targeted the most is Keenan Allen, followed by Ladd McConkey at 14 targets, Keenan Allen at 17, and Quentin Johnson at 13, right? And the leading receiver is, again, Keenan Allen. 12 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ladd McConkey's been kind of their slot demon, 11 catches for $122. No touchdowns. And then Quentin Johnson, man, talk about their deep threat, certified deep threat. 8 catches, 150 yards, 3 touchdowns. And the ADOT, man, the average depth of target for him is pretty insane at 15.2. So he's definitely the take the top off of the defense guy. Now, here's what makes this a little bit, I would say, tricky to kind of predict how the Broncos are going to play them offensively. Let me move myself over here. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, never mind. And so what I noticed with this one is it's pretty interesting how they line up their receivers, right? As you can see, 62% of the time they got Ladd McConkey in the slot, but they also got Keenan Allen lining up in the slot 48% of the time. And then Trey Harris, he's only, he's had limited snaps, but Trey Harris is kind of your other slot guy, which is a little bit surprising there as well. And then, they have Keenan Allen on the outside about 51% of the time. So Keenan Allen, so far, they've been using him as like outside and inside guy. And that's not really a surprise. That's kind of what Keenan Allen's been his whole career. He's just a very versatile, good overall receiver. He can play outside and he can play on the inside. So he's going to be mixed around. And then Ladd McConkey is primarily your slot guy, right? 62%, 34% out wide. But then Quentin Johnson is your bona fide. He's just playing your X. He's going to be outside the whole time. So that makes me think to myself, what's the game plan going to be like for the Broncos, or what do I think the game plan for the Broncos should be? Should you have PS2 shadowing somebody in particular, or do you just put PS2 on one side, you put Riley Moss on the other, and you hope that Jaquan McMillan and Jade Barron, a mix of those two, can kind of handle the slot guys. It's going to be interesting to see how we end up ultimately playing it. And we do know that they're going to try to, even though Will Dissly's been somebody that, only had 2 targets this year and 2 catches in 2 games, they're going to try to utilize him and Tyler Conklin and get those guys open against a weakness of ours, which is our linebackers. So we'll see how that ultimately pans out. On the blocking side, man, you can see Joe Alt is having just an unbelievable start to the season so far, especially in pass blocking. When you've had 76 pass blocking snaps and you're grading out at a 90, it's pretty amazing. Only allowed 1 hurry and 1 pressure, 0 sacks. That is pretty dang good. That is pretty dang good. And I don't know if I'm seeing this right, but that doesn't make any sense. According to PFF, have they not allowed any sacks this year? That would be interesting. I'm going to look into that and see if that's actually going to be the case, because that would be pretty insane if that was the case there. So I will check up on that for sure, because that just doesn't seem right. But anyways, they're a very stout group, and you can see that they have a lot of extra linemen that come in and play. Specifically Austin DeKillis, he's like an extra tackle that they typically seem to bring back on and play a few different snaps. Just 7 for him. But then, you got Scott Matlock, who's like your 300-pound fullback. You've got Conklin, who's your tight end, a really good blocking tight end, someone I kind of wanted the Broncos to get. That's out there for a lot of different blocking plays. And then, they'll be mixing in another guard as well here, and Jamari Sawyer as well, that they'll bring in. So they really like to bring extra linemen in, have a physical run game, or just really be able to max protect, because they feel like they've got a pretty big advantage in the air against a lot of teams, with Quentin Johnson resurgence, Lad McConkey being a stud that he is, and also Keenan Allen fitting in very, very well. And so it's understandable. They're out there and they've been throwing the ball a lot, but that this is going to be a very physical team overall. So it'll be very interesting to see what this team ultimately ends up doing and looking like. But again, this is the divisional opponent. These are guys that we know we should expect for the Broncos to be able to know at least what they're wanting to do from a philosophical standpoint, and obviously vice versa as well for them with us. And on the running game, this has really been the biggest surprise for me from this team. And like I said, I think you could flip on a dime with them being a Jim Harbaugh coached squad. But 51 attempts running the football, that's including your running backs and your quarterback and everybody. 171 yards, no touchdowns running the ball, 3 fumbles, and an average of 3.4. That is not good. That is not good. That's shockingly low. But again, I'm not going to rest. We can't rest on our laurels on that, because we know that the identity of this team is ultimately going to be running. And I'd say the first 2 matchups that they had against the Chiefs and against the Chargers, or against the Raiders, the advantage that they had mainly was in the air. Like, the Chiefs secondary is proven to not be very good, but they're good against the run. The Raiders are decent against the run as well, but their secondary is pretty trash. So maybe that was very game plan specific. I expect for them to certainly run the ball, probably more than they pass the ball in this particular game against the Broncos. But definitely some interesting stuff. And it's crazy, because if somebody would have told you that through the first 2 weeks of the season, the Chargers are going to be averaging 3.4 yards a carry, and the Broncos are going to be averaging 5, I wouldn't believe it. So pretty interesting stuff on there. No doubt about it, man. And so when you're looking at the flip side for the Broncos, I'm going to go ahead and go to the receiving here. The receiving, you can see with Denver, I mean, we know who our main guys are catching the football. It's going to be Cortland Sutton. It's going to be Troy Franklin. It's going to be Marvin Mims. Those are going to be the heavily targeted guys. We'll see what ends up happening with Evan Ingram. But, the guy that's leading the team in targets and in receptions so far this season is the one and only Troy Franklin. 15 targets, 12 catches, 133 yards, and a touchdown. And second there is going to be Sutton at 13 for 7, 67 yards, and a touchdown there. Otherwise, it's been pretty widely dispersed. It is very much, Cortland at number 1 and Troy Franklin at basically 1B in this particular case. So this is going to be a game, man, where, you're going to want to spread the football around. I think you're going to try to look at opportunities to get as many other guys as you can involved. But I want to see Marvin Mims. I want to see more Marvin, man. Good things happen when you get the ball in the hands of Marvin Mims. So looking forward to seeing that. And obviously I'd like to see more Pat Bryant too. He's just looked really good in the offseason. He comes in casually, looks like he belongs in the first 2 games. I think that they're going to slowly ramp him up every single game. He's going to get involved more and more. So that'll be interesting. And Troy Franklin lining up in the slot. I mean, that's been the big thing that I've noticed with him, and what Sean Payton talked about is he's done a really good job of learning 2 different positions, right? Being able to play outside and inside. But they've been primarily lining him up in the slot 60% of the time, and he's been doing a great job. And you know, they have obviously Pat Bryant out wide, Cortland Sutton out wide, and even Marvin Mims Jr. playing out wide 80% of the time. And so when you look at it, your primary slot receiver, the guy that is running the slot, is Troy Franklin. And then maybe the backup slot guy or somebody that's getting a little bit of slot love as well is going to be Trent Sherfield. So really interesting stuff so far. We'll see how that ends up panning out for this Denver team as well. And then, you know, we've seen this before, man, on the blocking side when it comes to him. I mean, Garrett Bowles had an unbelievable game based, you know, not just watching it, but per PFF last week. So he was, you know, super highly graded. But, you know, again, when you're looking at, let's do it by positions like this. When you're looking at, you know, Mike McGlinchey, hasn't allowed a sack. He's allowed a couple pressures, but he's been pretty good. Our O-line overall has been really steady, man. You know, a lot of hate on Ben Powers, but Ben Powers has been great. He hasn't even allowed a hurry or a pressure at all. This, you know, in 74 snaps. He's graded out super solidly in both the run and the pass blocking. So that's something that you got to love. In fact, he's graded higher as of this point than Quinn Miners. So kudos to Ben Powers for really flipping a switch and playing really well. And then obviously, again, as usual, Luke Wattenberg's been, you can say, the worst of the linemen. But again, he hasn't been overly bad as well. I mean, just allowing, you know, one pressure is pretty, one hurry, I think, and one pressure. Yeah, he's been overall pretty good. So like the way that we match up there, when you're flipping it to the defensive side for the Chargers, this is a place where I feel like they're extremely underrated, man. Very, very underrated team. They've got, obviously, Derwin James, who you can make the argument is one of the best just all-around players in football. He's phenomenal. He's a problem. But Dante Jackson's had himself a hell of a season so far. Targeted 10 times, allowed only 4 catches. Why isn't it letting me go over? And, I don't know what's happening. Sorry, guys. You know how this always goes, but there you go. 10 targets, allowed only 4 receptions for 16 yards. So Dante Jackson has been cooking. Tarheeb Still has been another guy. So they're secondary, they're starting corners. They've all been pretty good so far this season. So it's going to be a really good test for our team. And then, you know, Diane Henley, they talked about him, and I'm glad that he got a little bit of love on the Monday Night broadcast because he's one of the most underrated players, not just linebackers, in the NFL, rocking the 00s. So he's a really good player, man. He flies around. Him and Derwin James back there, it's a scary combination to have. And there's going to be a lot that we're going to have to, you know, really account for. But, you know, I looked at their defense, man, and how stacked they are. I mean, they're able to get a lot of pressures. They have, you know, 5 sacks up to this point, but they've got 27 quarterback hurries. They've hit the quarterback 8 times. So they can get after the passer, but their secondary on the back end is very impressive as well. No doubt about that. So that's it's going to be a hell of a challenge for us. And we're going to see. And shout out to Jamari Caldwell, someone I liked during the draft process quite a bit. But we'll see. We'll see how it ultimately plays out. These guys play a lot of different guys in the secondary. They really rotate dudes out, as you can see, just by the, you know, amount of snaps that a lot of these random guys have. But going to be one hell of a difficult test for the Denver Broncos to be able to weather, man. And I think for us, if you're asking me, I think no doubt about it, I think it starts with us needing to win the turnover battle. That's going to be one of the biggest keys because in 2 games so far this year, we've lost the turnover battle twice. We are lucky to be 1-1, to be honest with you. Well, then again, you can make the argument that we're very unlucky to not be 2-0, but that's another day. But it's not been pretty from the turnover ratio standpoint. So I think that's going to be the most important part, especially going up against a Jim Harbaugh team who I'm not going to say is incapable of coming from behind and winning games, right? But they're typically a team that is built to get a lead and then sustain the lead and kind of drain the clock. So if the Broncos can get a lead and they can do so, obviously winning the turnover battle will be helpful. You'll kind of get them to play a style of football that they're not necessarily the best at doing. That's going to be a big thing for us. And being able to establish that run game, establish your will early, that physicality is going to be big on the offensive side of the ball. And then on defense, obviously, these things typically tend to lead to turnovers, but we've got to pressure. We have got to pressure Justin Herbert, man. We went up against a formidable offensive line last week in Indianapolis, and they did a great job. We were able to get some pressure, but we were not able to get there. And Daniel Jones got the ball out of his hands quickly and accurately, and obviously Justin Herbert is very capable of doing that. So we're going to have to get home, find ways to confuse him, and find a way to force turnovers, whether it be fumbling or, getting interceptions. And the third key to the game for me, man, is the freaking special teams. The special teams just has to be very good. Don't make any bad mistakes. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. This is not an opponent where you can afford to do that. Even once, let alone 2-3 times like we've been doing a game. So I would like to see the special teams not only be vastly improved, but maybe they can make a play and pull their weight a little bit. And that's a lot of the times if the special teams can get a score, man, that's usually a big changing of the guard and a pendulum swing when it comes to your chances of winning or losing the game. But otherwise, super excited for this one, man. I really hope that we're going to have Evan Ingram be able to play in this game. I think it's going to be really important, even if it's just having him as a decoy like he's kind of been the last few games. We're going to have to see. But Sean Payton, Bo Nix, this is you guys' opportunity to get your first win against the LA Chargers coached by Jim Harbaugh. So looking forward to it. What are you guys' key to the game, man? We're going to have some matchups. We're going to talk some very specifics in a video tomorrow, ultimately give the predictions there. And then we're going to enjoy the weekend, man. And hopefully we will have a happier Monday than this last Monday was. But appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know in the comments below what y'all think. And until the next video, peace.